The Ramayana, translated into English prose from the original Sanskrit of Valmiki, edited and published by Manmatha Nath Dutt, 1891. Ramayana, Ayodhya Kanda, Section 117. When the ascetics had gone away, Raghava reflected as to his stay at that place, and from diverse reasons, he did not relish remaining there any further. Here have I seen Bharata and my mother in company with the citizens. Overwhelmed with grief on my account, they ever recur to my memory, and in consequence of the troops of that high-souled one having quartered here as well as the dung discharged by his elephants and horses, this place has got exceedingly dirty. Therefore will I go to another quarter. Having settled this in his mind, Raghava departed along with Videha's daughter and Lakshmana. And having arrived at Atri's asylum, that renowned one paid obeisance unto the sage, and the reverend Atri also on his part received Rama as a son. And having personally given Rama respectful reception and entertainment, the ascetic regarded the exalted Lakshmana and Sita with a gracious eye. And his aged wife having come there, Atri greeted her, and after she had been paid homage, the sage cognizant of virtue ever engaged in the good of all creatures, gladdened her by presenting Sita unto her. And that best of sages said unto the pious female ascetic, Ansuya, engaged in offices of virtue, do thou accept Videha's daughter. And Atri related unto Rama matters connected with the female ascetic, engaged in offices of virtue. The people were ceaselessly burning in consequence of a drought extending over 10 years. O sinless one, that one resembling thy mother is this, by whom furnished with rigid asceticism and adorned with voluntary penances, were created fruits and roots, and the Jahnavi was made to flow through the asylum, by whom were performed mighty austerities for 10,000 years, in virtue of whose penances, disturbances to the asceticism of the sages ceased, by whom 10 nights were brought within the compass of a single one. Let Vaidehi always resort to this aged ascetic devoid of anger, who is worthy of being bowed down to by all creatures. When the saint had spoken thus, Raghava saying, So be it, turned his eyes to Sita, and thus spoke unto that one knowing morality, O princess, thou hast heard what hath been uttered by the ascetic. For the sake of thy own welfare, do thou speedily resort to the female anchoret. Do thou without delay resort unto the ascetic Ansuya, who is worthy of being associated with, and who hath by virtue of her acts attained renown among men. Hearing these words of Raghava, Mithila's daughter, the illustrious Sita, drew near the righteous wife of Atri. Thereupon Sita, announcing her name, saluted the pious and chaste Ansuya, old with slackened joints, with folds all over her skin, and her hair hoary from age, whose frame shook perpetually, like a plantain leaf in the wind. Having paid homage unto that ascetic with her senses subdued, Vaidehi glad at heart, with joined hands, inquired after her welfare. Seeing the virtuous Sita engaged in righteous acts, the old lady consoling her, said, By luck it is that thou regardest righteousness. O Sita, having left thy kindred, and banishing pride, thou hast, O honored lady, followed Rama staying in the woods. They that love their husbands, whether living in the city or the forest, whether well or ill disposed towards them, attain great state. Wicked, or libidinous, or indigent, a husband is a supreme deity unto a wife of noble character. Than the husband a greater friend find I none, O Vaidehi, who is worthy of being served both in this world and the next, and who is like imperishable asceticism. but bad women whose hearts hunger after carnality, and who lord over their husbands, do not get acquainted with the virtues and demerits of their husbands, and range at their will. O Mithila's daughter, surely women of this sort who are given to doing evil acts, reap infamy and fall off from righteousness. But worthy women like thee furnished with excellences, see a superior and better world, and range the celestial regions, like pious people. Therefore following this one, and adopting the course of chaste women, do thou prove thee associate in virtue of thy husband, and then shalt thou attain both fame and religious merit. Section 118. Thus addressed by Ansuya, Vaidehi devoid of malice, honoring her words, began, that thou shouldst instruct me is no wonder in thee. I know that a woman's spiritual guide is her husband. Even if a husband should be poor and of a disreputable character, he should be ungrudgingly obeyed by the like of me. And to be said of one that is crowned with qualities, kind, self-controlled, of steady affection, righteous soul, and who is dear as a father or a mother. The exceedingly strong Rama beareth himself towards the other wives of the monarch as he doth towards Kausalya herself. Renouncing sense of self-importance, that heroic one conversant with righteousness, devoted to his king, regardeth as his mothers those on whom the monarch once cast his eyes. What my mother-in-law instructed me at the time that I was leaving for the lonely and fearful forest, is constantly present in my mind. And what also my mother taught me in presence of fire on the occasion of the bestowal of my hand, is also remembered by me. And, O thou engaged in acts of righteousness, I have not forgotten the words that my relatives said unto me, viz. The asceticism of a woman is ministering unto her husband. They did not teach anything else. Having served her Lord, Savitri is highly honored in heaven, and thou also, following the same course, by virtue of having served thy husband, hath secured heaven. And this foremost of females, this goddess of heaven, Rohini, is not seen for a moment without the moon. And prime women of this sort, firm in their husbands, are highly respected in the celestial regions by virtue of their pious acts. Hearing Sita's words, Ansuya, exceedingly delighted, smelling her head, spoke thus, pleasing Methili, by observing restrictions, I have earned great asceticism. By resorting to that energy, I would, O Sita, confer a boon upon thee, O thou of pure voice. O Methili, thy words are just and proper. I am well pleased with thee. Tell me, O Sita, what good shall I do thee? Hearing her words, Sita, surprised, said with a smile, unto that lady equipped with ascetic strength, all this hath been done by thee. Thus accosted, that one cognizant of virtue, was still more pleased, and said, I am exceedingly pleased with thy words. I will attain a desire of mine. This noble and grand garland, this apparel, these ornaments, and this precious paste for adorning the person, presented by me, let these, O Sita, grace thy person. These, worthy of thee will never be tarnished. O daughter of Janka, daubing thy person with this excellent paint, thou wilt grace thy husband even as Shri doth the undeteriorating Vishnu. Thereupon Mithila's daughter accepted those things presented unto her out of love, viz., the apparel, the paint, the ornaments and the garland. Having accepted those presents conferred on her from love, that illustrious one, Sita, quietly sat beside the female ascetic with joined hands. Then as Sita was sitting, Ansuya firm in vow asked her concerning a thing that was near her heart, saying, I have heard, O Sita, that thou wert won by the renowned Raghava on the occasion of a self-choice. O Mithili, that story I should like to hear, related at length. It therefore behoves thee to relate that unto me in detail. Thus addressed, Sita, saying unto the ascetic engaged in pious acts, listen, began to tell the story. Mithila's lord, the heroic Janaka, justly ruled the earth, engaged in observing the duties of Kshatriyas. As he was ploughing a plain intended for a sacrifice, I rose from under the earth, and in this sense I am the daughter of that king. Tending me, with my body covered with dust, Janaka, engaged in throwing handfuls of dust to level hollow spots, was struck with amazement. Being childless, he took me on his lap from affection, and saying, "This is my daughter," conceived affection for me. Then there were uttered words in the welkin, resembling those of a human being, "O king, in all righteousness, this is thy daughter." Then well pleased my righteous father, the king, lord of Mithila, receiving me, attained mighty good fortune. Consigned unto the pious eldest noble one queen, desirous of having offspring, I was brought up by that mild lady, with the tenderness of a mother. In time, seeing me fit for the company of a husband, my father in distress was plunged in thought, like a poor man that hath lost his wealth. Even if the father of a girl be like unto Sakra himself on earth, he repaid odium at the hands of his equals and inferiors. Perceiving this obloquy at a short distance, the king was plunged in a sea of anxiety, but could not cross it, like one that hath no raft. Knowing me as unborn from any female vessel, the Lord of earth reflecting upon it, could not come upon a suitable and fit husband for me. Then as he reflected, this thought occurred to him, I will righteously celebrate the self-choice of my daughters. In the great sacrifice of Oksha, the high-souled Varuna had well-pleased conferred on Devrata an excellent bow with inexhaustible arrows and a couple of quivers. Incapable of being moved on account of its weight, the kings could not even dream of bending the bow. Having obtained the bow, my truthful father said, "No fear," inviting at the same time the kings to an assembly of sovereigns. He that, raising the bow, shall string it, shall doubtless receive my daughter for his wife. Seeing that best of bows in weight resembling a hill, the kings saluting it, go away, unable to move it. And it came to pass that after a long time, this highly effulgent Raghava came to witness the sacrifice in company with Viswamitra. And Rama, having truth for his prowess, and the righteous Viswamitra were respectfully received by my sire. Then Viswamitra said unto my father, the descendants of Raghu, sons of Dasaratha, Rama and Lakshmana, are anxious to behold the bow. Thus accosted by the Vipra, my father brought the bow, and showed that celestial bow unto the princes. Thereupon, in the twinkling of an eye, bending it, the powerful Raghava stringed the bow and drew it. And as he drew it vehemently, it broke in the middle in twain. And the sound of it was dreadful like unto the bursting of a thunderbolt. Then raising an excellent vessel of water, my truthful father prepared to bestow me on Raghava. And bestowed on Raghava, I was accepted of him, after he had consulted the wish of his father, that lord, the master of Ayodhya. And inviting my father-in-law, the old king Dasaratha, my father bestowed me on Rama, having a knowledge of self. And my father bestowed on Lakshmana for his wife, my younger sister, the beauteous and chaste Urmia. Thus was I bestowed on Rama on the occasion of that self-choice. And ever since I have been devoted unto my husband, the foremost of those possessing prowess. Section 119. Having heard this grand story, Ansuya, cognizant of righteousness, smelling the head of Mithila's daughter, embraced Sita with her arms. I have heard all that thou, describing the self-choice, hast spoken sweetly and beautifully in articulated letters and feet. O sweet-speeched one, I have been delighted with thy narration. But ushering in the auspicious night, the graceful sun hath set, and there are heard the notes of feathered ones, which, after having gone about in search of food, are resting now for the purpose of sleeping. And these ascetics having bathed, are wending their way in a body, carrying water pitchers, their barks drenched with water. And the smoke arising from the fire sacrifice duly performed by the ascetics, reddish like the hue of the pigeon's neck, is seen, wafted by the wind. And trees of spare foliage appear dense on all sides, and distance is no longer perceptible. And animals ranging in the night are going about all round, and those deer of the asylum are reposing on the daisies. O Sita, the night crested by the stars hath arrived, and, veiled in moonlight, appeareth the moon in the heavens. Go thou, I permit thee. Do thou seek the society of Rama. I have been pleased with thy sweet converse. And, O daughter of Mithila, do thou deck thyself before me. Do thou thus please me, my child, thou that lookest beautiful with excellent ornaments, thereat, having adorned herself, Sita, resembling the daughter of a celestial, bowing down to the feet of the female ascetic, directed her steps towards Rama. And that best of speakers, Raghava, saw Sita, decked with the ornaments affectionately presented by the ascetic, and he rejoiced thereat. Then Mithila's daughter, Sita, related unto Rama all about her having been affectionately presented by the ascetic with attire, ornaments and the garland. Thereupon, witnessing the honor that had been accorded unto Mithili, rare among men, Rama became well pleased, as also that mighty warrior, Lakshmana. Then Raghu's son, ministered unto by the ascetic, happily spent the delightful night there, with her face resembling the moon. On the night having passed away, those foremost of men, after performing their ablutions, inquired of the ascetics performing fire sacrifices, who lived in the forest. Thereat the righteous ascetics ranging the forest said that all the sides of the forest were infested by Rakshasas, ferocious beasts feasting on blood, and Rakshasas, or Raghava, living on human beings, wearing various shapes, abide in this mighty forest. These eat up ascetics leading the brahmacharya mode of life, who happen to be unclean or heedless. Do thou, therefore, O Raghava, let them. This is the path of the Maharshis, who procure fruits in the forest. By this way thou wilt be able to enter the impracticable wild, O Raghava. Thus addressed by the ascetic twice born ones, and having been blessed by them, that represser of foes, Raghava, entered the forest in company with his wife and Lakshmana, like the sun entering a mass of clouds. Thus ends the Ayodhya Kanda of the Ramayana of Valmiki, translated into English prose from the original Sanskrit. Edited and published by Manmatha Nath Dutt, 1891. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please like and subscribe to be notified of when new audiobooks are uploaded. Thank you for listening and learning. Shanti.